So welcome all students to join live case study tonight. Have you ever watched the game show Shark Tank? Yeah. Have you ever heard about Vulcan Augemetics? Yeah, its founder a great business story. Yeah, actually, it's an amazing and meaningful story. Yes, but this company, Vulcan Augemetics, brings something to the disabled people to empower them with 3D robotic arms connected to mobile application at much more affordable price. Yeah, they want to show the problem of 38 million disabled people all around the world who really need change to live a life study, so a happy life. They want to try a job for living to pursue a happy life as everyone. So awards, the first prize of social enterprise, Blue Venture Award, the first season in Vietnam, chosen as only representative in Southeast Asia. Yeah. To join the final rounds of the Venture 2019, globally with top 5 favorite startups voted by the community. Yeah, they win 5 billion Vietnam successfully a Shark Tank game show. So Vulcan, a social startup since 2018, follows the idea to serve the community's benefits, have also been experiencing a lot of difficulties during their journey. So how they start a business, how they have overcome challenges and survive to follow their mission. The CEO and co-founder of Vulcan Augemetics, Mr. Rafael Masters, will tell us about their business story at the evening. So warmly welcome the keynote speaker tonight, Mr. Rafael Masters. Hi Rafael, nice to meet you. Could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. It's very nice to be here. Thank you for having me. So my name is Rafael. I am the CEO of Vulcan Augemetics, and we make affordable robotic prosthetics for developing nations, which will be extending to all wearable robotics globally in the next few years. As you mentioned, like we've been around a few years. We have done a few competitions, raised a few rounds of funding. We've just finished Techstars as well. So yeah, I'm hoping that what I have to share is something useful. I have got quite a few slides that I've got ready. Bear in mind that these are from a couple of university lectures that I have done on entrepreneurship, and the lectures were generally about 2 to 3 hours long. So I've had to cut this down quite a lot, and I will be going very, very fast over some of these slides. If anyone has questions, just drop them in the chat. I'll occasionally like stop and see if there's anything that's relevant that I can bounce through, and I'll go through them all again at the end. Also, I did send a video, which I would quite like the FUNiX team to run, which should show a little bit about Vulcan and what we do. So did you guys receive the video?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, of course. Yeah, so student, if you have any question for Rafael, you can ask him after he finishes his presentation, okay? Yeah. So we are excited to listen to you. Tell us about your startup journey, Rafael, please.
Okay. Could we start with the video I sent you guys? Yes. Can you run that, please? Check in the Zalo. I sent you the link.
Okay. Đăng ơi, Rafael có gửi cho em link video không?
Okay, I will share screen.
Okay, looks like that's a bit difficult. Thank you very much. So yeah, that was a quick overview of us and our product. So I will now share screen and dive into the presentation, but that should have given you some idea of what we make and how we try to make our users feel, which is pretty important in a startup. Okay. All right, so I'm assuming you can all see this. Okay, so yeah, hi again, everyone. Quick overview: Vulcan Augemetics, democratizing prosthetics for developing nations. So our vision or our mission is, yeah, we want to make a world where losing a limb is a temporary inconvenience. If you get injured or hurt, you should have the confidence that, you know, a quick stay in the hospital, a visit to a clinic, and you can carry on with your life as before. We also believe in a world where all of this should be available easily online so that you can upgrade and edit your body as at will, and that other people should be able to contribute and design and create things as part of this ecosystem. We believe that technology should respond as well as our organic bodies. Like, humans are tool-using creatures, and a mark of how effective we are is how well those tools adapt and work with us. And we want peer-to-peer economies to change the shape of manufacture, sales, and distribution. People making things and selling things directly to each other. And in prosthetics, this is a pretty big goal. So I guess part of what makes Vulcan quite compelling is perceptions, how people see the disabled. So these are a few very, very basic outlines, but you might be surprised who they end up being. So you've got a above elbow amputee, below knee amputee, a paraplegic, someone who's paralyzed, and someone who has broken their C4 vertebrae, so they can't move anything from below their neck. And each of these, when we hear about these types of disabilities, we imagine someone who is broken and less competent or less capable than other people. But for us, we take a slightly different view. So your above elbow amputee, that's this guy, Winter Soldier. Below knee amputee, I don't know if you've seen Kingsman, but you really don't want to get on her bad side. Paraplegic, you've got War Machine. And finally, for someone who's C4 vertebrae severed, you have Alita. So all of this is just perception. On the one hand, you can look at these people as broken, but just give them the right technology and they become someone who is, yeah, like someone to look up to, someone who is superior, someone who we look at them and we see strength. And for us, this just comes down to how people look at them and how we design and market the technology towards them. Like we have the technology to do this, it's just we have to get it done right. So when we looked at prosthetics, it's a very, very big problem, which is great if you're going to do a startup, which is it's a vicious circle. In order to get a prosthetic, you need to have income. And in order to have income, you need a job. And in order to have a job, you need a prosthetic. So the first person who can kind of kickstart this and break this cycle is going to unlock a huge amount of value, which is kind of what we do. So the customers, when I was starting Vulcan, the original plan was we love 3D printing. We started looking at doing a big 3D printing factory where you could employ people with disabilities who could design their own bodies. And the more we looked at this over time, we realized that it's a lot more difficult to do that to your body than you think. It's really hard to design these products and scale them out and make them easy to maintain, which is why we ended up focusing just on prosthetics. But the users that we talk to, these are people from all walks of life. We find it's mostly blue collar workers. A lot of the accidents that you see in Vietnam are industrial accidents and traffic accidents. Sorry about that, a little bit noisy. Yeah, my apartment is very noisy. So a lot of these that you see are industrial accidents and traffic accidents, and also ones that are in the workplace. And so people now can no longer get a job. So we wanted to design them products that actually really help them with their lives. It's not enough to just have a prosthetic that can open and close or that you can wear around. You need something that's going to help you generate more value. And that is like this ability to generate value and let other people generate more value. That is one of the keys to building a successful startup or company. Everyone wants to generate value. Everyone wants to get money. If you can give them a key to unlock more of that, then you are part of the way towards having a successful business. So these are some of the customers that we have. Most of them are fairly young. We do have a few older customers as well. Like we've got one guy who's 60 years old, but mostly we look at the younger demographic. So this is where I start talking a little bit about the journey of a startup. So when we started Vulcan, you're going to hear this phrase from me a lot: minimum viable. So at the beginning of your startup journey, you look at a problem that people have, you try and figure out what you want to do, and you build an MVP, your minimum viable product. And for us on the far left, this is just a design that we downloaded from a website, Thingiverse, printed it out. We put together some of our own electronics and we were just testing, like, can we make this thing work on a human? And when we figured we could do that, the next sort of minimum viable thing we wanted to do, okay, can we actually make this thing be worn onto a human? And once you've established what your minimum viable criteria is for each sort of pass point, you have a clear route to develop whatever your product is going to be. You just have to understand what is the most basic level of functionality to test something. And we've done this through several different iterations. We started with that incredibly basic one that you saw. Over time, the product and the packaging and the styling have got better and better. But we were out in the market, like or at least putting the product onto people very, very early in our development cycle. We didn't wait until we had a totally finished, beautiful thing. We got our user Dirk and we stuck it on him from like 2 months into the company. And where we are now is this, very nice, beautiful Mark 9 that we've fitted to about 30 people. We also have developed, a range of accessories. So this is differentiation. When you're going to create a startup, especially if you're in a market where the product, what you need from a product is fairly well established. In prosthetics, like what you need from a product is well known. It's a hand, right? The basic functionality. So the more things that you can offer that are above that, but a smooth and seamless integration, the better you're differentiated. But you can't go too far in this. You should still only be aiming for like, what is the minimum viable thing we can do to test this until you have the funding to sustain it and take it forward. I'll jump back into design philosophy later. So entrepreneurship. I understand a lot of you guys are going to be looking to be entrepreneurs. And yeah, it's leveraging novelty to generate sustainable change, i.e. profit. You have to do something new, at least where you are. And it has to be a system that can continue running and that you can bring in enough money to keep it going and growing. Now, this is not always going to be smooth and organic. You are going to have to go and get VC funding at some point, or at least like most companies will if they want to really scale and grow fast, which is one of the hallmarks of a startup. Everyone looks at them as something that sort of you'll go along smoothly for a bit, and then you're going to have a massive jump in growth or sales or scale. It's called the hockey stick graph, and you will hear them talk about it an awful lot. So, guess part of the first question is, why do you want to be an entrepreneur? Like, what motivates you? So there are a few different things. The most obvious one is money. I want a load of money and I want to get rich. You know, that's starting your own company. Another one is you want to make a change. You want to make sort of impact. You want to bring a positive benefit to society. And sometimes it's a combination of the two. That's what's called a social enterprise. But you have to kind of be aware of what your motivations are, because that's going to help you plan for the future. There are all kinds of end pass and exits for startups. And if you know why you're there from day one, then you'll be clear about where you're going to go on day 10,000. For example, if you're there, if it's like your mission, I want to make this social change in the world, I want to leave the world very, very different, then acquisition is probably not going to be a good exit for you. You're not going to want to sell your baby. But if your motivation is, look, I just want to build a more efficient company and a better service, and yeah, I also want to make some money in it, but I'm not married to it, you know, I've got loads of good ideas, I'm going to go through them one by one, then VCs are actually going to be more comfortable with you, because they'll see a company that, you know, can be sold to another big firm that can get acquired or acqui-hired, and they have an exit. But you need to know from day one, like, why are you here? What are you doing this? What are you doing this for? And what is your expected end goal? So for me at Vulcan, I absolutely love what I'm doing. I don't particularly want us to be acquired just yet, because I think there's huge potential here. So my goal would probably be IPO. You know, we'd want to get listed on stock exchange. I would stay in sort of control and be able to run my company independently, and all of our investors would still have an exit. But you need to be clear on this from day one when you're deciding why you want to start your company. So management versus leadership, I bounced over that quickly because it's a long slide, but you'll need to do both. In the early days of your startup, you're going to have to be a sort of a visionary leader, and you're also going to have to be the manager. The startup founder is the one who is doing all the things. And at the beginning, when there's not too much to do, the very early days, that's really cool. That's like absolutely fine, and it's expected. But just be wary of falling into this trap as things go on, because it's very easy for you to decide that you're the only person who can do something. One of the skills that you'll have to pick up, and it's really rewarding when you see it take off in your team, is delegation. There's so much you don't know, so hire experts and delegate. So there are a few key qualities that make an awesome founder. You don't need all of them, but a few of them wouldn't hurt. So commitment and determination. It's going to be hard. You know, you're gonna have to work at this for a while. There are very few startups where you're going to get out in less than 3 years, unless of course you decide to shut it down. And the next one is courage. Yeah, it's a big jump. This one, like, I think you can actually avoid having to be too courageous if you do it smart. Like a lot of people will tell you, oh, you need to jump in and fully commit. I'm going to tell you something very different, which is start small, start part-time, start with something that's minimally viable, and you can do it along with your day job, so you still have options. Do not drop out of university to start a wild startup idea unless you are incredibly technical and you already have millions of dollars of VC funding that has been committed. Like, you can be cautious. You don't have to take too many wild leaps. Leadership. You don't have to be a magnificent, amazing, leader like Napoleon or Boenzap, but you do have to be able to give a team a clear mission and vision and let them work towards it. Opportunity obsession. So yeah, you have to be looking at this big thing that you've seen, this great opportunity where there's loads of money or a big weakness. And you have to always be thinking about how you're going to crack that, how you're going to expand these markets, how you're like, you always have to have this eye out for where can we move forward? Where's the next advantage? Tolerance of risk, ambiguity, and uncertainty is, yeah, very key. There are times when if you are the CEO, COO, or leader, there are a lot of times where the future of the company will be very uncertain, and you are going to have to still provide solid, stable leadership. So you need to have this certain tolerance of not knowing what's going to come in the future. There are multiple times where I have actually had to lend the company some money because we were waiting for funds to come in from investors. And at these times, like I could be telling to the team and panicking and saying, oh my God, like there's so many challenges. We don't know when the funds are going to arrive. I don't know if we can pay you guys. Instead, you just have to keep it calm, keep it cool, and deliver. So in the end, like we did fully pay our team on time. We have never missed a payday. We have never had to let someone go for cost-cutting measures. And because of that, like record of consistency and being calm, the team will have more faith in you, which means that you will have more runway and you can manage your company better. Creativity, self-reliance, and adaptability. Yeah. It depends on which role you are in the company. You don't always need to be super creative. Sometimes you just need someone who's a fierce organizer. Sometimes you just need someone who can grind through a task. And motivation to excel, like you have to want to do something right. So these are the key qualities. I would say again, yeah, you don't need all of them, but a few of them certainly help. And especially in light of what I'm going to be telling you in a minute, which is, next one, it does start with you. You have to know what you like and love. Summary of this sort of brief chapter, but you also need a co-founder. So solo entrepreneurs can do well enough. They can have a fairly good journey, but they're less likely to get funded. It's much more difficult. You have fewer people to talk to, so you have to build your own networks. Like, just get a co-founder if you possibly can. You want someone in there with you. You want someone whose skills can complement yours and whose personality complements yours. So in Vulcan, quite frankly, I am chaos incarnate. I am one of the least organized individuals I know, or I was when I started Vulcan. I've had to learn to be more organized. And I've also got this from my co-founder, Ella. She joined us as a project manager, and she took on board the mission so well and was so organized and driven. And like, she was actually creative and proactive in how she wanted to organize. So just to jump back to what creativity is, it's not I designed a pretty new picture or I designed a great new product. Creativity can be, I figured out a new ERM system for our users. I figured out a better way to manage our accounting and expenses. All of that's creative. So in the case of Ella, like, yeah, she is very organized, very proactive, and she is someone who not only can cover my weaknesses, but someone who whose skills and motivation give me something to look up to. Like, you do not get better if you surround yourself with people who are, I don't really have the right word for this. Okay, I'll give it in a story. I spent about 8 years teaching English, and I was pretty good at it. I really enjoyed it. It's a fantastic job, like giving people tools and skills and watching them grow. And I was very good at it, and I was better than most of the other teachers. I ended up getting into management, but because of that, I got complacent. I ended up being satisfied with just doing that because I could see that I was better than at this job than the people around me. And that was a pretty low bar to set, but it was one that kept me satisfied. So if you really want to like push yourself and really make yourself a better person, you're going to need to surround yourself with people who basically make you feel small and who you really want to race to keep up to. So in this case, like, yeah, Ella is someone who, my co-founder is someone who complements my skill sets. They are fiercely organized. They're very good at networking, whereas I'm a bit more introverted. And they are someone who inspires me to do better every day and who I have to set the same example to the rest of the team as. So yeah, I've gone on quite a bit about this, but that's because it is really, really, really important get a good co-founder. You can do it solo, but this makes everything so much better for your personal and your business journey. Okay, so how to get good as a founder? Be open to criticism, like know where you're weak and work on it. Like I'm bad at organization, so I have to-do lists, I have notebooks, I set myself calendar reminders to go through my notes every single day and plan what I'm doing for tomorrow. I practice time blocking, like all of these different things. Know your weaknesses and address them. Find co-founders who also counterbalance them and who can give you an example of what to do right. Network. Yeah, I hate this part. I absolutely detest networking, but it's very, very important. You have to learn how to do it. You have to go out, be approachable, friendly, find ways to connect with all these other people out there, because yeah, you would be amazed. I know they say it's not what you know, it's who you know, and that is true, but who you know is up to you. Like you are the one who can go out and reach and make sure that all of those who's are important people who can help you. And like it's an expression that has sort of resonated more as I've gotten older and done more startup, but 90% of success in life is just turning up repeatedly. Because as a startup founder, if you do that, all of these startup events, meeting all of these investors, eventually they are going to find some opportunity or something where your name will crop up in their memory because they have met you and seen you many, many, many times. And so, yeah, networking creates opportunities, and it's just, you don't have to be the like brightest social butterfly in the room. At the end of the day, just know your stuff and turn up and have a few deep chats here and there. Get loads of feedback. You don't get better if people don't tell you where you're rubbish. And read a lot. I guess you could listen to podcasts as well, but for me, I love reading. Favorite book for me and my co-founder Ella is Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. Definitely recommend that one. All right, I've been talking 30 minutes, so I'm actually going to accelerate now and try and get through the rest of this thing in 10. So yeah, looking at innovation. So innovation comes from all kinds of places. And this quote, the most exciting phrase to science, the one that heralds new discoveries, is not eureka, it's, oh, that's funny. And this is true of what we do as well. Innovation is very often comes from, you just notice something different, something weird, something strange that you can act on. It doesn't have to be this big, deep tech thing. It doesn't have to be this deep AI thing. Innovation is simply doing something new. So it's don't sort of narrow your definition to this deep tech concept, because you will miss out on a lot of opportunities. Examples of this, like big firms get tied to their existing customers and only serve them. So examples of hugely disruptive companies that have dealt with this, like CDs and music companies. Music companies used to own everything. You know, they had the rights to the songs, they had the rights to distribution, they manufactured and sold the CDs, they took a cut. But then Napster came. It's for some of you who will remember this, I don't know how many, but it was basically a free music service, and they totally disrupted that market. The big music companies had to change, and they lost billions of dollars in value. Airbnb, hotels, the service was rubbish. People felt they were overpaying and not getting the right experience. Airbnb came in and catered to a whole new type of customer. You know, before Airbnb, they were thinking, who the hell is going to sleep in someone else's house? Who's going to open their house to let a stranger in there? That's really weird. But they came in and they disrupted, because hotels only thought about one type of user. Same for Uber. Taxis had a clear idea of what they were doing. Uber had something different. So innovation doesn't have to be only deep tech. It can be in your model and how you reach people. So yeah, a new idea isn't always a great or workable idea. Not every problem needs a solution. You should always recognize when people are happy with what they've got. Up until recently, Google was doing just fine, and building a better search engine wasn't a big deal. But recently, the way Google has been going with ads and the way that they have been portraying their search results, more people are migrating away and they're looking to alternative search engines. A few years ago, the timing was bad. Now the timing is much better. And also assume people are smart. Like if you've had this great idea, someone else will have had similar ideas. So look at what they've done and look at why did their big idea not massively solve this problem immediately. In the case of Vulcan, there are at least 2 other startup companies that are working on affordable robotic hands. And they've got a load of money behind them. They've got products that are in the market and they look quite good as well, but they haven't scaled up and they haven't grown big. So before we can go out there and say, yeah, we're going to massively conquer this market, we have to look at what our competitors are doing, what people facing the same problem are doing, and why aren't they scaling and growing up, and why aren't they sort of serving millions of people? So just remember that no matter how smart you are, there is always going to be some kid in Silicon Valley or Asia who is smarter than you, and they will also be struggling. So you need to figure out like, what is the right angle to take? And then you have over the curve. So you'll get some early adapters, they'll love your product. Then there's that big chasm. You're gonna have, you'll get a few people who are super enthusiastic, and then you'll have to slog your guts out and just work and work and work until you have enough social momentum behind you to take this product forward. Okay, a couple of things just to talk about business. It's hard. So whatever idea you come up with, whatever concept you want to take forward, even if it's a big mission, you're going to need money to start with. Or at least, it's got to make money to survive. And it's got to make money to have other people put money into it. And it takes time. It will always take longer than you think. I mean, we got our first product out there in like 3 months, but it took us 2.5 years to have something that was ready for market. Now, we do medtech, so you shouldn't expect everything will take that long for you guys, especially if you're doing something that's just pure software. But at the same time, it is always going to take longer than you think, and you are always going to be less prepared than you want when it finally takes off. So yeah, you need to reach critical mass, and that's just survival and sticking to it. So there are a few different things that create opportunities. I will put the deck up afterwards. I won't go over each of these individually. It will take too much time. But essentially, there are loads of different changes that come about in society on a regular basis that you can take advantage of. This could be something like new technology comes about. It could be something like a new regulatory change. It could be something like COVID, where multi-billion-dollar companies have grown up in the space of 3 or 4 months. So there are all kinds of opportunities out there. Like COVID is actually a really good example because on the one hand, billions and billions of trillions of dollars of business was wiped away and trillions more was created by this disruption as new companies came about, as remote work took off, as all of these things that previously looked so niche were able to grow, as Zoom meetings took over and increased efficiency of fundraising processes, like huge opportunity there. But also, if you exist when there's that big market disruption, you are going to have to learn to pivot and change to take advantage of it as well, or you might fall behind and die. So smaller companies win on a few things. You can be agile. You can do things that don't scale. You can have much faster communication cycles, and you can take risks. So no one ever got fired for buying IBM. That basically means that in big companies, people want to keep their jobs. They want to be secure. They do not want to order new, scary, unconventional products or try new, scary, unconventional things because they might lose their job. So they'll go for the safe option a lot of the time. There are a few companies that are like explicitly startup friendly where you can actually make these connections. So look out for them. But for the most part, your big advantage is against huge competitors like market incumbents is that you can be faster. Agile development versus linear development. So you are going to hear a lot about agile development if you're in a tech company. It's really good. It's really fast. It lets you adapt super quickly, but you might end up somewhere very, very different to where you thought you were going. We have had this a few times where we're designing extras and attachments. We started off designing one thing and the end product has been a completely different output. So just be wary. And if you work with engineers, you're going to have to stop them jumping after the most fascinating problems and keep them focused on users. We've had this with Vulcan, like our engineers love to try and make the coolest, most fancy, amazing sort of multi-mobile hand. At the moment, our users don't need that. They need something that's going to help them just, you know, open a door, pour a bottle of water, and tie their shoelaces. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up here some tips and truths. Yeah, startups take time. So you can, if you're doing something that's a difficult industry, it can take you years to really see growth and momentum. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. You know, you're going to go in with this great idea of how you're going to grow and scale, and here's our forecast, and like we'll go to A to B to C to D, we'll get in these users and clients. You're going to have to learn that that doesn't work. You will have plans, they will go like maybe 30 or 40% right, and you're just going to have to keep adapting on the fly. But you're always going to need to still have some kind of future plan. VCs especially are going to look at that. Things get complicated all at once. So there's a famous business saying, how did we go bankrupt? Oh, well, it was very, very slow and then all at once. So you do need to be looking forward, because things, if you let things go for too long, they're not going to gradually sort of hit you. They will all hit you at one time and you will not have the bandwidth to deal. Plan your cap table. So very early on, think about what is going to happen to your shares and how you want to split it with your founder. Have clear agreements. You might be best friends, but you still need to have this clearly sorted out, especially because as you go forward, everyone else who invests in your company will need to know you have this clear. And balance structure with agility and not get overwhelmed by the chaos. So yeah, you're going to have to be super flexible and agile, but you are also going to have organizations and systems that let your team function smoothly. It's a very tough balance to manage, and you are going to have to jump into it yourself a lot of the time. I'm going to wrap up the slides here. There are actually a few more. This is the biggest tip I can ever give you. Startup life, it's just this. Just keep swimming. You will be amazed at like how far and how long you can go if you are just, yeah, patient and perseverant. 90% of success is showing up repeatedly, and 99% of success is showing up repeatedly with an idea and something to show for it. Okay, yeah, so I'll quit on the slides. I will give some final kind of tips though. If you're looking to start a company, so if you guys are actually very keen on doing your own startup, so first thing is MVP. Figure out what it is you want to make and what is the smallest thing that you can build that shows this will work. So for us, robotic hand. Well, we just downloaded the first design we found off the internet. We slapped on an Arduino circuit board. We found one amputee and we put it on it. That was our MVP that said we can do this. And that was like what, $100 of materials and maybe 10 days work. So figure out what your MVP is and just scale that up gradually. Secondly, think carefully about how you want to do it. Start part-time. I would not ever recommend just jumping into a startup full-time immediately and throwing your life into it, especially if you still have a day job or other education to complete. Do it part-time, do it with a friend, build your minimum viable product. Go to some early accelerators or incubators. You can look at Antler are actually very good. They look at founders directly. So Antler will look at you before you even have your idea. And they'll say, okay, this person looks pretty cool. They're motivated. We'll give them a mini MBA and we'll help them figure out their idea and we'll help them find a co-founder and give them some funding. So if you want to do a startup, but you've got no idea what, something like Antler is pretty good. If you do have an idea, you can go for smaller accelerators and venture builders. You can also go for grants, and it doesn't take that much to start a company. So Vulcan is a med tech company, all right? That's pretty hardcore. You know, we do hardware. We started it with about $5,000 and we didn't even pay that in at once. We just like counted it up for a few months. And at the end we said, okay, we spent 5,000. That's going to be our capital that we list at the beginning. So yeah, just make a start on a small scale and you can build up from there. Find VCs early, find venture builders early, get your name out there early. Tell everybody what you're trying to do, all right? Do not like, I'm gonna use bad language here, but stealth startups are bullshit, all right? It doesn't matter how good your idea is, nobody cares. They care about execution. So what you want to do is tell everybody about your awesome, fantastic idea, but also show them that you are executing on it and that you know what you're doing. I can tell 1 million people about Vulcan and what we do, and I can even send everyone our design file so they can copy the product. It doesn't matter. If the solution was just designing this product, everyone would already be wearing cheap Chinese prosthetics. But they're not, because it's about more than just the idea. It's about the execution, the network, the community. So yeah, get what you're doing out there as early as possible. Talk about it, be public. You don't have to be taking in money. You don't have to have revenue. You just need to be publicizing and building that community. And then when you're ready to launch or kick off, you'll have people around you who are interested. And you'll already be on the radar of venture builders and venture scouts who will be looking at you for opportunities. All right, I've been talking for 3/4 of an hour. I'm going to shut up now and open to questions.
Yeah, thank you for the speaking, Rafael. Your business story is amazing and inspires so much. I think the product is not a great product for disabled people, but it also a great solution. It makes their life better and easier, right? So, students, have any question for Rafael?
Yeah, I've got 2 here from Satya Mishra. Okay, how the prosthetics connect with sensory neurons. Okay, it doesn't connect with sensory neurons. Very few prosthetics do. Most prosthetics use EMG sensors. So when you go to hospital and you see people with like the little paper pads on their body with the wires coming out, they read your body's electrical signals. It's the same technology. Most prosthetics will build that into the socket so it can't be moved, and it doesn't really work in developing nation, like this kind of climate. It's just really high tech and fragile. So for us, our users connect the hand with a little box using Bluetooth. That box is on their leg and it has buttons that go under their toes. So they basically press down with their toes or any other part of their body that they want to open and close the hand. And at the entry level, like this takes them 20 seconds to learn. It's really cheap, it's really robust. So for the markets we're in now, it makes sense. But we also do use EMG sensors. There are these bracelets called myobands that have these EMG sensors all around the arm. And they connect with Bluetooth. So we just wire them together and it can do that as well. Financial challenges in the beginning, not so much. When we started Vulcan, I was working full-time still in education management. And I was just doing this part-time with another guy, Akshay. And so we would spend like a few $100s here and there. Like we'd buy some 3D printing time, we'd buy some filament, we'd hire designers for a few hours work here and there. So in the early days when we were developing like what's our minimum viable product before we went full time, it wasn't that stressful. It was actually like, it was some of the most fun times of the startup because you're not spending that much. You're just doing it from pure passion. You don't have to worry about, you know, business considerations. You're not freaking out about paychecks yet. It's just you and a small group of highly motivated people seeing, will this work? And you're all turning up like and getting things done in a very, very communal way. And you just add it up later and say that's the capital. So early days, like not stressful at all. Later days, like when you start taking in institutional investors and you have a full-time team and you've got paychecks, that's when you start to stress a bit. Challenges as a foreigner, oh my God, yeah, it's a nightmare. I couldn't start the company myself. We had to start it as a full Vietnamese entity, and then I had to buy it out. I have to set up foreign investment capital accounts, and money can only go in and out through those. Otherwise, I'll have to pay a huge amount of tax on this. Furthermore, it's really difficult for us to bring in other investors. So one of our investors is from South Korea. It took us 8 months to get clearance for them to send $100,000 into Vietnam and on our cap table. Absolute nightmare. We have just completed a transfer of our company shares to a holding company in Singapore, which means now investors find it really easy to get on our cap table. It means electronic documents are legally accepted. We can use DocuSign and HelloSign for safe agreements and convertibles. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, so I would say if you are a foreigner starting a company in Vietnam, you can do it initially, but as soon as you start looking for investments, like you really need to have a Singapore holding company or even a Delaware company if you've got the funds to start one off in the US. I do not, and unfortunately, I do not recommend at this stage trying to keep the whole company here in Vietnam. You just won't be able to bring in investment. Plans to upgrade the product? Yeah, absolutely. It's modular, so you can. Hang on. Where is it? I should have one lying around somewhere. Ah, bingo. Right. Product. Yeah. So it's just detaches like this. So and we're going to make it backwards compatible. So this is the starting hand. The one I actually have here is, we made this for fun. Most of them are black. This is one that we call the Wiener milk hand. But yeah, we're going to be upgrading them over time. We're going to release new models. So you'll start off with something that's pretty basic and $1,100. And over time, you'll upgrade it bit by bit. So you'll end up wearing something that costs more than your car. How do we balance financial survival between investing more in product R&D? That's actually a pretty good question. It hasn't been an issue because, how do I explain that? It's not really a question of one or the other. Like in the early days, for example, there wasn't any question of this because investing in our product R&D was the only thing we were doing. Like for the first 2.5 years, it's all R&D. And we just had Ella who was doing, business development and some limited sales. And then after that, like we had a product. So we could cut down a bit on R&D and we could divert more towards operations, sales, marketing, BD. So it's never been that much of an issue for us because if you're already out there with a product in the market, it's fairly rare that like you have to make the choice between surviving financially or bringing out this new product. Like it's very rare that bringing out a new product is gonna save your company. So yeah, it's not that much of a balance for us. Loving the names, yeah. Everyone says they come from Iron Man, but it's actually been used since like World War I. The first British tank was the Mark I Whippet. Search for human resources with intellectual potential. With great difficulty, you have to find people that are mission motivated. We're really lucky. Like what we do is pretty cool. And so like, it's very visual. It's clear that it's helping people. It's kind of futuristic. So we do have a big advantage over some other startups where people who have that mission, where they want to, help people out and they want to help the disabled, especially, like they're a lot more motivated to join us. We do compete against big companies and it's sort of a combination of being a bit proud and a bit sad because we will bring in people who are like interns and university students. Over 2 years with us, they'll grow into amazing engineers. And then like, yeah, there'll be a fresh graduate with 1 year of experience. And then like IKEA will recruit them for 50 million a month. And we can't quite afford to pay that for someone who's, 1 year after their graduation. But I'm quite proud of what it says about how we help our team members grow. And that is one of the things that you really if you want to recruit bright, motivated young team members, you have to offer them opportunities for growth. They will eat crow on pay. Like they will accept terrible pay so long as you are giving them new experience, you're exposing them to good mentors, you're giving them growth, and you're giving them a mission that they align with and feel motivated by and passionate about. But you're still going to have to really fight to get them in the door because like the first thing anyone's going to see is money. And it's totally fair that they care about that. So you're going to have to, be very proactive and clever in how you recruit. Do you create or develop your products with the budget calculated beforehand? Yeah. We do not, or we did not. Like we are just getting to the stage where that's what we have to do. In the early days, you have no idea how much things are going to cost. I think for that's especially true for us as medical hardware doing something new. It's much harder to cost and figure out how much this should be because no one really does it. But if you are going to run a software company, if you're going to go into like fintech or e-commerce or whatever, you can actually math that out pretty clearly. Like that's something where you can develop and create your budget beforehand. There are a lot of known variables, like this is the team that you need to build a website. This is how much you're going to spend on AWS. This is how much you're going to need to spend on SEO. This is what your content marketing is going to cost. Like you can map that all out beforehand for some companies. For us, we just had to basically go for it until we had the product ready enough. And now we are at the stage where we're having to do serious budgeting, forecasting, and we've just separated out our departments and we're setting departmental budgets. But like until you're big enough, I mean, we're at 20 people now. Until you're big enough, you don't need to focus too much on having it all departmentalized. But yeah, you can budget it out clearly if you're in an industry that gives you that data. What makes me spend a few hundred to buy some design? Well, we didn't spend a few hundred on buying the design. We spent a few hundred on tinkering around with it. So the design we just downloaded for free from Thingiverse and 3D printed that. And we bought some components and threw them in. Why would I do that? Like, because it wasn't that much. Like, it wasn't like I was throwing down several $100s in a few minutes in one day. You know, it was over a few weeks and months, and we were constantly seeing progress. It was like, okay, yeah, we've seen that the hand can open and grip and pick up this thing. Okay, let's go out and buy some more expensive motors. Oh, okay, we've seen this control board works. Like, let's see if we can get it to work with more EMG. Let's buy a couple of more EMGs. Okay, we've seen that we can build this design feature in it. Let's get a designer in for a couple more hours. So it was like, it wasn't that big an investment, like over one time. Like I said, it was a few $1,000s over months. Have we got due diligence process and got investment from Shark Lean? No, we have not. As with most Shark Tank companies, if you're going to go on Shark Tank, what I would say is prepare really well, read the papers carefully, and look at it primarily as a PR and marketing and legitimizing exercise. There are a lot of deals that are agreed on. Last time I checked, it was something like 20% of them actually do end up going through and making it past due diligence. I would, don't pin your hopes on getting investment from there, but I would definitely go on Shark Tank and stand your ground on what you think your value is, and leverage it as much as you can for marketing. Like maybe in Vietnam, a lot of the VCs and investors kind of know the deal. If you're looking for investment from outside Vietnam, everyone who looks in and sees Shark Tank, like that's pretty impressive for them. And for us, marketing to our particular niche is a real challenge because like people don't really sort of group together as amputees, and there's not a whole lot of search data online that's going to let you sort of identify these people. So having that kind of mass reach that was super visual really helped us with unit orders. So I just say, yeah, take advantage of it in that way. What do I think about the characteristics of an entrepreneur? Perseverance and politeness. Sounds weird, but that's it. If you can just keep going and keep your temper, don't be an asshole. Like early day, well, a lot of the time in startup is going to be really hard. And if you're obnoxious, like I know there's this great image of, you know, there are great leaders who are shouty assholes, like people like Steve Jobs, who would yell at his design teams and get them actually almost fighting each other. Musk is super, super aggressive in how he runs and maintains his engineers. And that is not what you should actually aim for. Please do not think that that is like the model of a successful entrepreneur. For every Jobs and Musk who actually succeeded, there are thousands upon thousands who have failed because all of their team quit and they ran out of runway and no one wanted to stay around with them because they were just horrible. So yeah, keep going, keep motivated. You're gonna have to, as the CEO or co-founder, you will have to basically be the happy smiling face of the team. Like you can show your stress sometimes, but you're going to have to be always the one who turns up every day, who has absolute faith in your vision and what you're doing, and that keeps your team going. And also, yeah, like, know your team, know what motivates them. I'd say that is probably the things that will keep your startup going the longest. Another thing that I'd probably say is an important characteristic is you have to really want to improve yourself. Like, you have to be very open to criticism. You have to actively seek out negative feedback. You are going to be weak in all kinds of ways, in all kinds of places. And you've got two options, which is either one, learn enough and work enough to get strong in those places, or two, hire experts and delegate. And if you're going to hire the experts and delegate, then yeah, you still need to be a pleasant person to work with, because you're a startup, you're small, you don't have a big budget. And if you want to get real talent, they can leave you and get a better job anytime. So you've got to have, like, yeah, that mission, that perseverance, and they've got to look at you and see, this person is not going to give up. I want to stick with them because I think they'll do it. What did I think about the market when I was in the early days? When you're in the early days, you're always going to be a lot more optimistic about your market. The market is huge. The market is easy. No one is getting it. It's a really basic problem. Why are all these idiots not able to do it? And then you get a couple of months in, or like a year in, and you're like, huh, okay, this is hard. So there's some stuff we didn't know. Or, okay, we'll do a bit more digging. And then you get 2 years in and you're like, okay, maybe we know some of our stuff now, but like, there's still so much stuff we don't know. Let's do a few careful, cautious experiments. So yeah, market in the early days, you're super optimistic. As time goes on, you will learn to narrow it down to pick a much more specific bit of the market. You'll learn a lot more about how your target users interact with it. Yeah, don't let yourself get discouraged if your initial thoughts about your market turn to be a little bit more optimistic than they are. Like, your market doesn't need to be $100 billion or $1 trillion market. If your market ends up being a bit smaller, if your product is still really good, then you're fine. You can still take a large share of it, and you can also look for opportunities across markets. Thank you very much, Satya.
Thank you, Rafael.
Any book I would suggest? Oh, wow. A load of them, actually. But if you're asking about a book I'd suggest in terms of business and just general background, Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. That is a fantastic book. I guess the lean startup is kind of okay. The 1 Minute Manager, if you're going to design systems, that's a pretty good one. Other books around that, like, I'm going for a lot of cliches here, but I'd say How to Make Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Like, you're not going to be able to follow a lot of it, but it does give you an interesting framework to think about human interaction. And the final ones I'd recommend, which are not at all, like, not really self-growth, but books that have really informed how I see the world and how I look at business and interaction. I'd say Terry Pratchett. He writes really ridiculous fantasy comedy, but he is one of the best observers of human nature ever. And because it's in a fantasy comedy kind of setting, it's very divorced from any sort of current day politics or drama or anything that could sort of distract you from the core humanistic issues. I'd also recommend Neil Stephenson. He wrote a book called Snow Crash, which is actually where we get the original word metaverse. So he's the first guy that sort of conceived of the metaverse in this book, Snow Crash. So that's a really good one to read. And finally, kind of similar to Elon Musk, I'd suggest reading Ian M. Banks. His sci-fi series about the culture is incredible. You're not going to get a lot of deep tech from there, but you will, same thing again, like it gives you a much broader framework to look at societies and to look at how people interact when there is like no scarcity. So yeah, those are the books I probably recommend the most.
Thank you, Rafael. Yeah, so business story inspires so much. It's so great. I think there are a lot of questions we want to ask you, but time is quite late. So I think you see our startup is so busy, right? And,
I'm fine for a little bit longer if people want to stay and ask questions. But I understand, yeah, like lots of people here will have other things to do.
Okay. So before leaving, I think we should take a picture, right? So student, turn on the camera. We are going to take a picture, yeah, to catch the wonderful moment. Yeah, yeah. Mr. Dang, can you tell me take a picture?
Trong tiếng Anh được gọi là muzzle break. Tiếng Việt là phanh mỏng.
Đăng ơi, Đăng chụp giúp chị cái ảnh nhé. Okay. Okay, student. Yeah,
let's
take a
start.
picture and look at the camera. Yeah. And say chi. Okay. So, okay. 1, 2, 3, say chi.
Okay. It's done.
Okay. Okay. So thank you. Take a real joy like case study tonight. Rafael, the business story and message is so great. And I hope the business will grow faster, getting better, bigger and bigger in the future. Yeah. And I think the product is useful to display people around the world. So improve the life. Yeah. So
yeah, I'm very, very happy to be here. If you guys would like another talk sometime on a specific topic, just like tell me what it is that the students want to learn to do, and I will give as much as I can on how we did that at Vulcan.
Yeah, yeah. We saw the dream come true, and thank you for the great speaking tonight. Yeah. All students, thank you and goodbye. You can say thanks for Rafael. Okay. Okay, thank you and see you in the next case study the next week. Bye bye.